Okie doke.
Perfect.
Are we recording this, Alison?
Just let me. Yes, we are recording. Is that okay? If you don't want us to, that's okay too.
No, I'd like to see the recording. It'd be nice to hear it afterwards.
Yeah, sure. So they'll be uploaded to the YouTube area, and depending
Perfect.
on I need a little bit of technical assistance to do that. So it's usually by the end of the week that we'll have that up, and we'll notify everyone.
Okay, fantastic.
Super. All right.
Will I give people a couple of minutes to get back and?
Yeah. Wait. Have you got? What time have you got, Damien? 11. Are you ready? 11:30. Yeah. I think. Oh, thank you, Damien. No, I think we're all here, Graeme. So
Okay.
we did ask people to make sure they were ready to start back at 11:30. So if you're ready,
Yeah,
we
good to
will
go.
crack on. So over to you, Graeme, and your presentation on theoretical and conceptual understandings of autism and autistic ways of being.
It's actually not. It's about social communication, but that on your form to submit an abstract, that was the category that I put it in. So it's social communication of autistic people, yeah?
Super, that's great.
Okay, and I believe I'm a Queen Margaret in Edinburgh, and I believe my supervisor is sitting in. So hello to Erna. Okay. This is for my PhD, which, as I say, is it's an inquiry into social communication of autistic neurodiverse people. And I have kind of a different reading list. So a lot of the people attending, I believe, will be doing the Masters in Critical Autism Studies. And I came a very different route. I came through a mindfulness masters. So I'm not an autodidact as such, but I've kind of found my own way with this with the support of my supervisors. So the philosophy and the psychology are very beautiful. And I'll try not to be overly technical, but I quite like the way the theory is as built as a foundation theoretical basis. Neurodiversity was first said by Judy Singer in '97, and she called autism a disability of social communication. So now, over 20 years later, we can kind of reimagine this not as a disability, but if we can look at it as strengths-based. This is the advocacy work, the positionality, the place I come from. Language. I'm looking in everything that I'm trying to understand is about language, and theoretically we can unpick this a little bit. There's a guy called Naoki Higashida, who was a young Japanese autistic boy. He was non-vocal but not non-verbal. And so they gave him an iPad and he wrote a book. And it blew me away just how much unexpressed coherence he had within him. And he spoke about language like an unknown foreign language every minute of every day to be understood. And this is the kind of the wellspring that I'm trying to build on. Barry Prison, he calls it a second language for autistic people. What is this? What is a second language? Gadamer was a phenomenologist. He spoke a lot about art and about finding truth in art, and he used the same lens to look at language. And he said, in order for understanding to be shared, the participants need to find a common language. So in the kind of realm of the double empathy community, this is how do we find and maintain a common language in which truth emerges for both. Gadamer gives us the idea of being translators. A translator must understand what one speaker means and then translate. So let's dig a little bit deeper and see what we've got. Subjective sensory reasoning. What I really feel, what I feel is true, is my subjective sensory reasoning. Damien himself in the phenomenology paper with Dinah Murray of 23 talks about a sensorium, this sensing, feeling, belief in what we call authentic congruence, subjective congruence. How can we now contrast a sensory reasoning with a linguistic reasoning? So I really feel is subjective congruence, and then we need to translate into language. So in order for it to be intersubjective, how does what I feel, my gut instinct, what I feel it in my bones, how do I understand and translate this into communicable language? How do we cross the bridge? Vermeulen talks about monoliteralism, and he says that monoliteralism is acontextual. So what's going on around me is different from what I'm really feeling. So in sticking to a literalism, remaining fixed on the dominant meanings of words and sentences that does not change, this is similar to what Dinah Murray spoke about in monotropism. The central focus remains different from the contextual understanding. How do we build this bridge? Well, from monoliteralism, we can now contrast literal meaning with an inferential meaning. So these are indirect, ironic, figurative, metaphorical meanings that are the kind of language of the context. And how do we pull them together? How can a speaker imply certain meanings beyond the literal meaning? And how can a listener infer or deduce them? So now I'm relating to what I'm hearing as inferential, and how do I act accordingly? So here's the bridge. So what's expected of us in a neurotypical society is to act as rational actors. For my research, for my data gathering, the analysis of my data, I'm using what is a lens of attribution. That is, how do I track the meaning? Is it subjective and sensory, or is it contextual? I use this lens of attribution. This is back to Gadamer, is how does the truth emerge? This here is good, and that there is bad. That's the neurotypical expectation. We see that Haider calls this a fundamental attributional error. And when I first encountered this as an undergrad, it just blew me away. It's like how to understand. You can see it in any kind of politics, which I won't go to. But if you think of sport, if you think of, I don't know, football, and your team's just lost a big cup match, and the other team, they cheated, and the ref was rubbish, and the weather was awful, and you blame all the negatives on the other team, even though they won. And your own team, well, we played really well and we were robbed, and you attribute all the positives to yourself and externalize all the negatives. This is the fundamental attributional error. And this is how I'm going to analyze the data that I've got to understand where is the inference? This is to the neurotypical expectation of us in society is to act a role. These are the subject roles and subject positions and the scripts that are expected of us in society. If you're getting on a bus, you get on a bus, you tell the bus driver where you're going, you pay your fare, you get your ticket, you sit on the bus. You're working within a script that's expected of you. And you ding the bell when you want to get off, and the bus driver stops and you get off the bus. Bourdieu calls this the linguistic habitus, the scripts that are expected of us in society. And he talks about these schemata, which are equivalent to the kind of neural structures that we have that are played out in society. But ultimately, from Steponi and Fazzulo, understanding is not what they've told us is our deficit of lacking theory of mind, of being able to conceive what is in another person's mind, but it's about being able to go on with one another. And this is how we construct the concept of being rational actors, the dramaturgical self in the neurotypical society that we live in. Okay, that's my website. If anybody would like to talk with me, you can find my contact on the website. Give me a call, and we can set up a Teams and have a chat.
Thank you, Graeme.
Thank you.
Okay, so trying to go through some comments. Let me see. Okay, so in no order, just the first one that I've seen, which is Catherine's. We need to recognise that there are cultural changes to scripts that change the scripts and don't make them wrong. So in Cardiff, as a bus example, we exit with a cheers driver. If we, if we can accept different scripts for different, if we can accept different scripts for exiting a bus, why can't neurotypicals accept different scripts across neurotypes? As the term Katie used earlier, it's a pretty low bar, that, isn't it, Catherine? You know, it's not much to ask.
Yeah, do you know, how can we reimagine this? It's not a disability, it's a strength-based. It's, you know, yes, we're able to assert ourselves in a way that's, cheers, driver, thanks a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Flexibility
Damien?
and rigidity and in non-autistic sociality is just as marked in a way, and it makes me laugh when people talk about rigidity and need for prediction, because what are social norms about, and why are people so phased when they're breached and broken? So it makes me think of Garfinkel's breaching experiments, unruly bodies, kind of, what if you can't play the script? So my son's autistic, has high support needs. Occasionally he looks like he's playing the script when he isn't. And sometimes he's obviously not playing it, and so on. And so autistic people kind of break the script if they're not masking well. And it's kind of, you get that kind of social sanction and policing that happens when it's like, oh, what are you doing? You're breaking my sense of social reality.
Yeah.
So it's I relate to a lot of the references. I like Gadamer myself, and it's nice to have that kind of philosophical reflection on sort of double empathy issues and things.
You quote Deleuze and Guattari in your Goffman
Yeah.
chapter, and they talk about the dominant scripts, and you know, this rigidity that you say is kind of you can view it as like holding on to the reins of the conversation in a way, you know. But Steponi and Fazzulo is about this progressivity of, you know, the young autistic boy is kind of being preempting the power structures in a way that you wouldn't expect a 5-year-old to be able to do.
So, yeah, the Steponi's work, I think, is really interesting and really good work, and yeah, really in-depth conversation analysis. I've seen a comment in the chat about conversation analysis.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do and very, very time consuming, anyone wanting to undertake it, but there is some brilliant work out there. Have a look at.
I'm sorry, I find it difficult to talk and read at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. You can after your presentation, you can take some time and go through the comments.
Can I put my QR there up to my website?
Is this the one that's on here for your? Yes, you have.
It's on the end of my PowerPoint.
But you can put it in the chat as well, Graeme, if you can.
I don't know.
As somebody who's completely techno incompetent, I don't know how I would do that either.
Okay. No, I don't know how to do that either. So,
but if you leave it there, then people can then they can click onto it.
when you put the recording up on the YouTube, can you put it on there? I'll email it to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect,
yeah. So any links to websites or anything, we can do that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was the politeness theory. That's one I'm going to have to look up too. Oh, thank you, Nathan. I think Nathan has put that
screen grab. Thank you.
Yeah,
brilliant.
by doing it. Yeah. But also, if you email it to us, Graeme, we can link it to your video on the Park YouTube website as well.
Appreciate very much. Thank you.
Have I missed anything, Damien? So Graeme, your QR code is obviously about recruitment for your research. Can you tell us a little bit about that? So you're conducting research interviews. What does that look like? What are you?
It goes to my website, and on my website there's a contact page, a little bit of background about social communication, about my positionality, and the what I'm looking to do, or what I've started doing, is having a Teams conversation for about an hour with some questions to discuss about autistic neurodiverse communication. So what we do, what we're able to do now, when I've done presentations for the NHS teams, they're all looking to the advocates for their diagnostic criteria. So it's not the kind of the old Uta Frith and so on, and Baron Cohen. They're looking to people like Damien and Dinah Murray and the more recent advocates for what they're doing. So these conversations that we're having, how do we keep the conversations going and talk about this kind of established idea that what is sensory to me, what is true, is different from what I'm communicating in the outside world. So how do we build that bridge? By having conversations. So just a kind of short interview, about an hour or so, and chat about social communication and what your experience is. And that's the kind of data that I want to do, to use to kind of to begin to look forward of what are the advocacy points that we can enable to tell the bus driver, cheers bus driver, what is that advocacy point? And it's from us, from these conversations, that we'll find the answers to these questions, yeah, or more questions.
Fantastic. There are a couple of people who, if you do get a chance to read comments, who are either doing similar work. So there's a comment from Trojan who's looking at social communication and speech and language therapy.
Yeah.
So that might be interesting in terms of connection. Damien, is that a hand up?
Yeah, I was just thinking around some of the psychological research on double empathy that I saw at the recent INSAR conference. And a lot of it was looking at emotional expressiveness and sort of understanding that and not finding much difference, although some did. And I commented to them that emotional expressiveness is at least somewhat more universal in its kind of reading, although there are some differences. But in terms of understanding more embodied differences, so sensory differences, this kind of thing, the gap's likely to be wider the more the embodied differences are wider, because with a cultural difference, you can at least work on mutual understanding if both parties are up for it. But embodied differences, it's kind of that bit more difficult, to express and understand something that one doesn't fully experience oneself. Do you see what I mean? It's that, I think, sort of, how do we build understanding around issues where there is that embodied gap understanding? Fun to think about.
Yes, indeed. My approach is inactive, so it is embodied, and it's got a phenomenological base to it. But I don't know. I guess I learned from my dad, who tried to speak French and was never very good at it, but he used to wave his arms a lot. And it was just kind of like, how do you mime what you want to say? I think you've kind of got the tiger by the tail, with understand what I really feel is easier to express in my embodiment. And if you can cross that bridge, then maybe the linguistic connection, the synchrony becomes easier.
You go about it the other way, like a sensory connection first. It's interesting to think about sort of practice and building mutual understanding, whatever context you're in, what actually might help in that respect. So,
yeah,
thanks for that.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you so much. As I say, Graeme, if you have a look through the comments,
I will indeed. Yeah. Thanks
there may be things we've missed. And people, that you might want to
connect with.
Yeah, definitely. Sort of reading. Jodie starting a PhD in October, looking at embodied enactment, using Deleuze and Guattari. So yeah.
Ping me an email, and you can find my address on the website.
Super. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. That's fantastic.